Welcome to Inside the Newsroom. My name is Mindy Marquez, and I'm the executive editor of the Miami Herald. The 10th annual South Beach Wine and Food Festival is going on right now, and it's one of the largest events of its kind in the country. This is like the Super Bowl weekend for food and wine lovers, and of course, that includes our very own wine writer, Fred Tasker. So Fred, in your 20 years writing about wine for the Miami Herald, you have sampled literally tens of thousands of wines. I know it's a tough assignment, but somebody's got to do it, right?
Somebody's got to do it. That's exactly right.
So, how do you approach your role as a critic?
Well, I don't pretend to know more about wine than a lot of people. I try to describe the wine for people so that they can see if it's something that sounds good to them, then they can try it. I don't try to tell them that it's the most wonderful wine in the world or anything like that.
And do you have your own rating system that you apply?
I do. A lot of people use the 100-point system, and I've heard people say that if a major critic gives a wine 90 points, they can't keep it on the shelves, and if they give it 89 points, they can't sell it. And that implies a precision about wine tasting that just doesn't exist. The real thing about wine tasting is how subjective it is. And if I might think it's the finest wine in the world, and you might not like it at all.
And the other thing about writing about wine and food, for that matter, is that it's fairly subjective, which means you probably get a lot of reader reaction to what you write.
I do. My favorite email came from a reader who said that he loved my wine column because he disagreed with everything I said, so he knew what wines to avoid.
That's too funny, but I imagine that has its own value.
Yeah, it has value to him. I mean, he reads me every week.
That's great. So, we're in tough economic times right now, and people still want to enjoy their wine, but probably not at the higher price point. How to select a good and expensive wine?
You know, the only way you can really find what you want is to try wines. Just go out to the grocery store and buy some wine and take it home. The thing that people don't do is to remember the wine. So they will taste, people come into me and say, I had the most marvelous wine last night, and I'll say, oh great, what was it? And they can't remember. What you have to do is just write down the name of the wine and just say A, B, C, or just say I liked it, I didn't like it, and keep that note so that every time you get a glass of wine, you can see if you liked it, and eventually you will have a big thick notebook of wine notes, and you can go out and choose what you're looking for.
So, given the kind of reaction that you get and the fact that it's very subjective, some folks might say, well, why have a wine writer if, what's the value?
Well, what I try to do is to describe what the wine tastes like to me, and then I try to tell people why it tastes that way. If you have a nice, crisp, lean Chardonnay, it may be because it was fermented in stainless steel and in very cool temperatures. If you'd like a rich, buttery Chardonnay, it might be fermented in oak and given secondary fermentation to lower the acid level. So if I can tell people why wines taste the way they do, then they have a better idea of going out and finding the wines that they want.
So this weekend, people are going to have the opportunity to sample, hundreds of wine at the South Beach Wine and Food Festival.
I know, isn't that wonderful?
They get to live like you, Fred.
Every day.
So what's the strategy that somebody could use to try to get something out of it?
Well, it can be hard. You walk into this big tent, and if you're at the walk-around tasting, you've paid $225, so it's not cheap. And you see 1,000 wines in there, so where do you start? Well, what I try to do, you have a couple of different ways you can do it. If you can just go around and taste whatever you see, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you want to try to learn something, you have to focus in on something. Just pick German Rieslings or Australian Chardonnays or something like that, and go taste 20 of those. You better sip and spit if you're going to taste 20, but
yeah.
But you have to focus down, or by the next day you won't remember what you tasted, and then you won't really have gotten anything out of it.
Thanks, Fred, for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you. It was fun.
As always, thanks for reading the Miami Herald and for spending time here on MiamiHerald.com.